following article was written by Max Sauer in 1921 for the Athens Messenger Watchdog Society page. The article is entitled Amesville Society Hurrah! Let one of the highfalutin Athenian society folks have a tea or some other such arrangement, and our society editor snaps onto it with a column or two, with the most exquisite words in the dictionary, bless your heart. But a fine, decent meeting of common folks scarcely receives 5 lines in 6-point type. But Amesville is to come into her own. For last Saturday night, Abigail and I were in Amesville society. You know, Abigail hasn't been getting along very well in the Athenian snobility, and I thought I would take her out where she'd feel at home. And never since we have been hooked to the matrimonial sulky I have enjoyed an evening so much. Had the party been held in the aristocratic Presbyterian Church in Athens, with Oscar Mance and Captain Allen as ringleaders, my journalistic sister would have sung quite a different song. But never you mind, Amesville is come into her own. The big affair was held at the home of F. W. Gibson, the village druggist. And I'll lay any man a box of cassorettes that it was the finest of its kind ever pulled off in Athens County. Gibson called it a waste party and said that it was the first time he hadn't wasted for quite a while. We brought out our flivver to a halt in front of the post office square and inquired where Gibson lived. The man of whom we inquired happened to be the village marshal, Charles Fox. Well, Fox must have thought we were after Gibbs' money. Anyway, he wouldn't say a word, and we asked another loafer, whom we learned later was Joe Lortz. I went in to Shoup's store to get a stogie, but I couldn't get Abigail near it. You see, Cash Wolf, who takes care of one of the big railroads, caught a skunk under the store one day last week, and ever since, Atmosphere has not been at its best. Anyway, Abigail grabbed her nostrils and dragged me away. She hasn't any more city blood in her veins than she has Carter's ink, and as long as she lived in the country, she has never become friendly with this varmint, the skunk. Well, we arrived at Gibson's home, and there was Gibson at the door waiting for us. He first asked us the latest weather report, and then he let us enter. Gibbs is usually a sort of crabbed chap, but this time he was exceptionally gay, as though he had had a glass of water with a touch of coloring in it. But Rev. Chapman and Mrs. F.C. Gibson were there, so I knew that couldn't be true. Well, being how as it was a waste party, they said we would have to have a measure around our waist, and they got out tape measures and circle it around our belts, which came to a total of 60 cents. Then they began to introduce us to different people of the town. Mrs. Fred Shope was the first, and she said it would have taken a week's profits from the butcher and grocery store had both she and Fred come together, so she made him stay home. Gosh, but I would have loved to have seen Fred. Then the country folks began to come. They had to do all the chores. The chicken had to be put in their pens, the milking had to be done, the crockery dried and put away, the swines bedded down, and the cellars locked when they jumped into their mechanical cockroaches with the forms of flivvers and enjoyed the ride in the evening ozone to Gibbs' fine house. Just as John Fleming came in the door, Mayor Owen Linscott grabbed 2 tape measures and pinned them together. And it took the 2 of them to go around John, who measured 52 inches. Joe Lortz was next and perhaps the thinnest. Wilbur Carpenter, the new postmaster, brought along a rote book and made sure that they measured him according to the rules and regulations and in the right zone. Wilbur said that in this age of world with brains that count for nothing, it takes a perfect 36 to get by, and he claims that's what he's got. But the real attraction of the evening were when the eats were brought in. Abigail helped with the java while I carved onions for the vegetable soup. The favors were tiny boxes of DeWitt's early risers, which Gibson had left over from last year. The rooms were decorated with holly and strings of popcorn, with quantities of colored paper flowers which stood in vases at each place throughout the house. At a late hour, when womenfolk counted the pennies and then set out to scrub the dishes while the menfolk smoked and poured hot water on their radiators so the flivvers would start when their wives were ready. After the cups and saucers were polished, Abigail and I cranked our flivver and started back to Athens, the end of the most delightful, exquisite evening we have ever had.